We are Heather and Paul Christie.
And for over 12 years, we've worked with executives and entrepreneurs to accelerate change in every aspect of their business.
Because we are in the fastest paced business environment that anyone has ever seen before.
So join us for the Evolve to Win show. Isn't it time that you and your company and the people, your employees in your company, get to know each other? And what do we mean by that, Heather?
Well, you think that you know each other because in certain cases you've been working together for maybe years, maybe decades. So you think you know each other, but do you really know each other? So I want you to imagine this scenario. Imagine that you have two people who are working together and they get along fine, but not great. And so what happens is there is maybe the possibility of conflict or tension, which decreases productivity and also kind of mucks with the culture. And so if you are familiar with this scenario, which happens in every single company, we have a solution. And I think the answer is that the reason that the conflict exists is most often because people don't really know each other well enough to respect each other's differences.
Yeah, I would agree. And I think that a lot of people, you know, we've talked about this before in other podcasts about how people take things personally, or if there's an act done to them at the office that they take personally, then they believe that that's who that person is, and it just goes on, and then it perpetuates itself, and it turns into this monster of like, I don't really like this person because they wronged me one time, right? And it happens. It just doesn't happen at work. It happens in life,
everywhere.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
where you're actually living from your past and not your present. So you're holding people responsible for something that was said or done years ago, and you haven't quite forgiven, you haven't quite gotten over it. And so you bring it with you into every conversation you have with that person, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of that has to do with making judgment about right and wrong.
Right.
Well, how do we determine what's right and what's wrong when communicating with someone else? Well, typically what's right is the way I think or the way I communicate. And I want everyone to think about the way you communicate, right? So we tend to, I want you to think about, you remember when we bought those VR goggles?
Yes.
A couple years ago?
Yep.
All right. So if you've ever seen a pair of VR goggles, they're those big, honking, ugly
like a mask almost.
It's like a mask where you can actually watch live video or play games or do whatever, right? So it's you know, like a fantasy world.
Yeah.
Well, it's like we're all walking around with our own pair of virtual reality goggles, but the virtual reality is our reality. It's our perceptions. So we tend to see other people as we are, not as they are.
Mm-hmm.
And what I mean by that is I'm going to give you
we run it through our own perceptions of how things should be.
Mm-hmm.
And it filters through that. Mm-hmm. And then when we see other people doing things that we wouldn't do, we would make them wrong.
Yes. Yeah. Because we just don't relate to it. It's not natural. It's not normal. And I'm going to give a perfect example. And I want you to, give us feedback if you can relate to this scenario. I want you to imagine you're in a grocery store and you're about to check out and you pull your shopping cart up to the line to check out. Now, you're someone who does not just hop into the line that's closest and most convenient. You're someone who scans every single line and you're looking for the shortest possible line. But I'm not just talking about number of carts. You will actually go the next step and you will start to look at how many items are in each cart because you might have a couple of lines that look about equal. Well, you don't stop at looking at the number of items. You might even look at the kinds of items. Is it going to take extra time for me to get through this line because of the types of items in the cart? But you don't stop there. You're going to take a look at the cashier and you are going to make a split-second decision about whether or not that cashier is going to be efficient. Are they going to hold me up? Are they too chatty? Or are they going fast and efficiently? But you don't stop there. You look at the people driving the cart and you make this split-second decision about whether the people driving the cart are going to hold you up because they're moving too slowly. And so all of this is going on in just a couple of seconds as you're vying for the first available line. And let's just say that a line opens up as you're making your calculation. You pull that cart on two wheels to get into the new line to get out of the store as fast as you possibly can.
I do that at Costco because
Costco in Southwest Florida.
Well,
yeah. It's maybe a different
So
subject.
Costco is like the, what would you say? The fact that just everybody, especially down here in Southwest Florida, that everybody is on either a snowbird or on vacation, like there's no
Different
urgency
time.
whatsoever.
Right.
So I am totally looking at that line
Yeah.
constantly, like, who's got the least amount in their basket.
You're assessing. And for some of you, the new self-checkout lines are just amazing because you're like, I know I can do this faster than anybody else who works here, right?
Yeah.
So this description that I just gave, if you relate to it, you will also relate to the fact that when you get home and you pull into your garage, I don't care how many bags you have, you will strap them all the way across both arms, and you might even juggle something or balance something on your head so that you can get into your home in one trip. You will do anything to avoid that second trip. Now, if you relate to anything that I was just talking about, then you're somebody who's motivated by efficiency. Now, here's something I want you to know, and this could be mind-blowing for you. There are other people who are watching or listening to this right now who don't relate to a single thing I just said, and they say, no, I just hop into whatever line is most convenient. Or they might even say, I will usually get into the longer line just in case somebody else is in a hurry. So what's really interesting is we're all wired in very different ways. So we all have behaviors that we show to the world, observable behaviors.
Yes.
But we also
So the
have,
actions that people see.
Yeah, the actions
Yeah,
we
the
take.
speed, the pace that we're going at, the
pace,
speed,
yep.
the pace. And then are we more introverted or are we more people persons, right?
Well, yeah. Are we more oriented towards people, or are we more oriented towards getting something done, towards
Right.
task, right? So you can see that in observable behavior. You can tell whether someone's fast-paced or slow-paced. You know whether someone's a people person because if they are, they love being with people. Well, all of that is as observable.
If you're listening right now, are you fast-paced or slow-paced? Type in.
All right, so we'll see which ones are quick and which ones are slower paced. The faster paced people have already typed so quickly that you can't even
And
keep up with
the
it.
second part of that, are you more people-oriented or are you more task-oriented?
And by task-oriented, we mean you like to just check things off your list. And you might even be one of those people where if you complete something that wasn't on your list, you'll go to your list, you'll write it down so you can check it off because you love checking things off the list, right? So
but that's just the actions and behaviors that we see.
Mhm.
But you're saying that there's a deeper level than that.
Yeah. So you think about in any workplace scenario, maybe I've worked with Paul for 10 years and I kind of know about him in terms of him being a more reserved, slower paced, people-oriented person. But if I don't know more about him, he's got these hidden motivators. So he may behave in a certain way that I can see and I can identify, but there's a why behind what he does that I do not know, unless, of course, I know, right? So the why you do what you do. I gave
But
that example.
why is that important?
Well, think about it. I gave the example of the shopping cart, of the experience of checking out. People who are really, really interested in efficiency in the workplace are going to do everything they can to minimize the amount of effort put into any given project to accomplish the result. They're usually very, very results oriented, but they're not going to pour a lot of time, effort, or energy, like not put any extra time, effort, and energy into anything. So if I'm someone...
So let me just give you an example. So I think I'm a good example of how motivators really affect my actions.
Yes. Totally.
Okay, so I answered that question myself. So am I more fast paced or slower paced? I would say I'm more slower paced.
Yes.
So I'm slower paced. And then am I more people oriented or am I more task oriented? I feel like I'm kind of in between, but I think I'm a little bit more people oriented, which then you would say, well, if you're at a line, like you don't mind standing in line. Like I shouldn't mind standing in line because I'm slower paced and I kind of like people. And so maybe I can talk to some people and drum up a conversation or whatever, but it's not that way at all because my hidden motivator is all about resourcefulness. It's all about quick ROI, like get things done as quickly as possible
Fast as you
and
can.
at the fastest and the least amount of time. So that drives me internally, but my actions would come off as like, that's how my brain's
Laid
going.
back. Right. So
And
there's
then-
a conflict.
Right. There's a conflict.
Yeah.
there. And so we all have, we all potentially can have conflicts that cause these things going on. And we see it happen all the time when we're working with
All the time.
clients.
So
Yeah.
the expectation is that Paul is laid back and he would be reserved and just go with the flow.
Yeah.
But what's going on inside his brain is, I want to get out of here as fast as humanly possible. And so he feels that conflict internally. How does he play it out? It totally depends. But if you didn't realize that he had that internal drive for efficiency, you would absolutely mistake the fact that he has it.
Yeah.
So think about this. Let's say someone is on the completely other end of the spectrum, somebody who is the person who would just kind of get into whatever line is convenient,
Right.
or even jump into the longest line because someone else might be in a hurry. That person is really more interested in putting in whatever time, effort, and energy is needed to complete a project. So
Mhm.
their satisfaction, their motivation is about project completion, not how much energy do I put in. So let me give this to you in a really practical way. You've got a project going on at work and you have somebody who just keeps, like in your mind, maybe spinning their wheels and spending lots of extra time, but doesn't seem to be getting to the result quickly enough. That would be someone on one end of the spectrum who's really all about quality work product, will spend extra time, will pour in extra resources, maybe even pull in extra people to a project. Whereas someone on the efficiency end of the spectrum is like, oh my gosh, you are
like,
spending way too
Done
much time.
is better than perfect.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. Can we get this finished, please? So just this one example, we've just chosen one motivator, and motivators are on a spectrum, right?
Yeah.
We've just described one motivator that can create massive, massive workplace conflict. Because if you have someone who's really, really high on the efficiency side, I want to just put as much effort as is needed to get to the result as fast as I can.
Mm-hmm.
You can see how someone on the other end of the spectrum is like, you're just not really putting the effort in. Why don't you put more time into this project? Why are you trying to hurry everything along all the time?
Right. So you're saying that we are not seeing the whole picture of a person, of course, right? We don't get. I mean, you learn things about
complicated.
Yeah, we are
human
complicated, but there
beings.
really are. Well, what I think of is like three things. So you have the actions, the behavioral styles, right? What we just talked about. It's what we see of each other.
Mhm.
But then you have the hidden motivators,
Mhm.
and these hidden motivators are now quantified by scientists. They
Yes.
know which ones there are or what they are, and they've named them, and there's a way to measure them to find out about them.
Correct.
But then there's also, the things that go on in our life. There's things that happen, all of the joy and all the happiness and all the tragedy that goes on within that builds us as a person as well.
Mhm.
So you really don't know you only know one part of a person a lot of times, and you really don't know what's going on with that hidden motivator section of it, and you really don't a lot of times know what goes on behind the scenes of what's going on personally with them, which all make up a huge part of it. So we really see. So I think that causes a lot of, I totally believe that it causes so much conflict and just maybe misunderstandings of people throughout as employees, and you take one situation and you turn it into this big deal, and then for the next 3 months or 3 years or whatever, you don't talk to that person, or it can be a real problem.
Yeah. I mean, imagine the difference between tolerating someone and actually collaborating with someone and working together with someone in a productive way.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that one of the biggest challenges with productivity in companies today has to do with human relationships. And when we talk about conflict, I'm not suggesting that people are yelling at each other all the time. That's not usually how conflict shows up in the
Right.
workplace. Conflict shows up like, I'm
You
not
know.
going to say anything. I'm going to pretend it's fine. But in my mind, this person drives me nuts.
Yeah.
So what happens is
Passive aggressive.
passive aggressive comes out. We're inauthentic with each other. And then you've got these broken relationships all throughout organizations.
Well, let me just, before you go into broken organizations, you have one of the reasons that we have so much passive aggressiveness going on at workplace is, first of all, we don't want people blowing up at work, right? But also, the vast majority of our population is more
conflict averse.
Conflict averse.
Yeah.
So it's over 2/3 of the population is going to be way more conflict adverse. So they're not going to say anything.
So what's really interesting is, of the different behavioral styles that we have, you're right. If you use the typical 4-part behavioral model, most people in business have studied some level of 4-part behavioral model. Whether you've studied DISC or colors or animals or birds or whatever, like they have.
Weren't you a monkey?
I might have been a monkey. I never took that one, or a lion. I'm a lion. But so in that 4-part model, 3 of the 4 styles are conflict averse. They do not want to speak directly in a way that they feel that it would cause conflict. And you know who you are, those of you who are conflict averse. You do not want to directly say what's on your mind. And so this is a real challenge, because you have so many unsaid conversations, right? And that creates passive aggressive behavior. And so it is absolutely killing our productivity, and it's killing our culture too, because as we're just going through the day tolerating each other, it's not that we're hiding it from anyone, right? If you look at the 10 people around you who you work most closely with, you could rank them in order of who you get along with. And the couple of people who fall at the bottom there, guess what? They know that you don't like them, or that you are frustrated by them, or you are annoyed by them. And they probably are annoyed by you too, but we never talk about it. So what's the solution?
Well, oh gosh, what I want to add. I was going to say the ultimate in passive aggressiveness is Twitter. Twitter is like the social media passive aggressive, like people. I mean, there's people that just blurt out anything on there, but for the most part, they're hiding behind their Twitter handle, their social media cover, and they're just tweeting out things that they a lot of times they wouldn't say to anybody. They would never say to anybody's face, but they're tweeting that out, and it's just a way to be passive aggressive, to be able to get it out there, but not have to deal with the emotion and the real conflict that comes along with it if you do that face to face with somebody.
Yeah. So at least some people have outlets that they didn't have previously.
Yeah.
I mean, like the worst of it is what you might think of as the water cooler conversation, where if I'm really mad at Paul, but I put a smile on and I don't tell Paul, but then I turn around and I tell someone else, right? Then it creates so much havoc. So what is there to do about it? Well, one of the things that we do at Evolve Global that has become so popular with our clients is introducing teams to each other. And usually we start off
and sometimes reintroducing them to each other.
Well, because a lot of times they've worked together for more than a decade, right? But we help them see aspects of each other that they've never known before. Giving you an example, one of our clients out in California, we worked with their senior leadership team, actually their executive team, and the CEO and the COO had worked together for more than 10 years. Mm-hmm. And after doing an exercise where we sort of uncovered things about each other and the ways they would prefer to communicate and what matters to them, the CEO realized that for 10 plus years, he had been doing the wrong things and annoying this other person. And then the COO, by the way, was not the type of person to tell him directly. So it just created so much trouble that did not need to happen at all.
Well, heck, Heather, you and I did that. And it wasn't until maybe 6 months ago that we really went through our styles of ways to communicate with each other. And we did pinpoint a couple of areas that we were doing the don'ts for each other. Mm-hmm. And I mean, even in relationships, just marriages, there's things that you are doing, like I was doing to you and you were doing to me communication-wise, that were not working. But I thought that's what you wanted because, well, that's what I want. And it's the complete opposite.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. So what you can do is you can actually do exercises where you first of all understand yourself better, really understand the makeup, how I do things and how I show up for other people, which, by the way, most everybody we work with is surprised how they show up for other people. And they don't necessarily even believe it until they do, until they really see it. So finding out how you show up for other people, but also finding out why you do what you do,
Right.
why you're motivated to take
Right.
action. So once you understand you, now you're available really for the first time to understand in more depth more about the people who work with you.
Yeah, and I think it also is getting alignment in yourself, because when you start to understand that you have these motivators that are motivating you to take action on things, but they're in conflict with maybe your behavioral style, you start to figure out, okay, well, now I understand how I can work through this and why I'm having these feelings, or why I'm having anxiety around this, or why I have challenges around doing this. You really start to understand yourself better as a person. So imagine that for yourself, but then imagine understanding people that you work with and why they're doing the things that they're doing.
And here's the thing, like if you just boil this all down, if you were to understand more about someone who you work with day in and day out, and especially if that someone is someone who you don't exactly see eye to eye with, that you just struggle a little bit with, what if you had more of a roadmap to how to, for what matters to this person and how you can communicate in a way that they'll receive really well, and you could make some minor modifications to the way in which you talk to somebody, the way in which you communicate with someone. And what if that made work so much easier? Because what if you could actually then work together in a really positive and productive way with that person and not have the frustration or the animosity or whatever else is going on for you? I've had people say before, well, I don't want to change who I am. Usually it's the boss who says that, right? I don't want to change who I am. They should know who I am, and they should change who they are when they come and talk to me. And that's all fine and that's great. If you don't want to change and adapt your style to have a better relationship with someone at work, that to me would suggest that you like it just the way it is, right? Because that's what you're going to keep getting. If you keep doing what you keep doing, you keep getting what you keep getting.
Got it.
So it's that easy. So you can do it the easy way or the hard way. The hard way is trying to figure it out on your own.
Mm-hmm.
The easy way is to take a very simple assessment and find out exactly why you do what you do and how you show up for others. So it's an easy process to go through. If you want any more information, certainly reach out to us. We can send you in the right direction.
Hey, and if you love this topic and you like this show, please share it. And this is also a part of our podcast, so you can see us on Gulf Shore Business or on heatherchristie.com. If you haven't signed up for our leadership list, please do that. And we have some really cool things.
And you do that on heatherchristie.com.
That's right.
Just click the sign up button. I'm sure there is one somewhere there. And by the way, we don't share email addresses to anyone. I wouldn't even know how to do that. But we do send some great information for you that really helps you take yourself and take your team to the next level. So I hope you guys have an awesome day. Thanks so much for tuning in to the Evolve to Win show with Paul and Heather.